G'day and welcome to the Grow a Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Truen. Each week, we speak with an owner who has grown a business with 5 to 30 team members to something bigger. Diving into their numbers and unearthing the pain they've experienced, we explore what they did to overcome each barrier and what they would do differently from day one. Let's get into it.
Ruchi, thank you so much for making the time to catch up today. Really looking forward to this discussion because I think you're going to touch on some things that resonate with a lot of our client base. I know you tend to focus on females, but you also work with males. But I think from what I understand, the areas that you work in will resonate for a lot of our audience. So maybe as a starting point, I'll get you to give us a little bit of an introduction into who you are and tell us a bit about what you do.
Awesome. Yeah, that's so true what you said. And it's so great to be here with you and your listeners. So thank you for having me, Rob. So I am the founder and CEO of Watch Her Prosper. I'm a small business finance expert, and from financial guidance to money mindset to spirituality, I work with women to help them redefine prosperity. So for us, we really think about prosperity in a new way. It's not just about the green stuff, but there's these 3 pillars we like to talk about, which is well-being, spirituality, and relationships with money and with people. And in order to really understand that and more about what I do, I'd love to share more about my background and rewind a little bit.
Yeah, great.
So I was born here. I'm here in New York City. I was born in the States and had immigrant parents and mostly grew up with a single mom. And one of the things I really remember about growing up is how all of my classmates had all those new fashions, those designer jeans. So here I'm an 80s girl here. We had Jordache jeans. I don't know if that was a big thing down under, but here it really was. Was it? Okay. Yeah. So I remember all of my classmates, all my friends, those came out, everyone had them. And to me, that really equated to this perfect life. Like having those things, having those jeans made everything okay. And, we didn't really have the means for that. So I would get them when they were out of date, out of fashion. And so for me, sort of fast forward now, having a whole career going on Wall Street, I felt like I finally made it. I can finally have that thing. And for me, that thing was a Prada bag. And all of you listeners, you might have a different thing. And what I found was, okay, got my money, got my Prada bag. And what I found was nothing changed. I went into debt, that momentary satisfaction of having the thing, and nothing changed. And so that's when I realized prosperity isn't about all those things. It's really an inside job. And that is really what led me to do this beautiful work in the world at Watch Her Prosper.
Great. Well, that's a brilliant place to start. So tell me about the clients who work with you now and what tends to be the trigger for them to seek you out?
Well, a lot of them actually come because they are just talking to their colleagues and their friends, like, I need a bookkeeper, right? There's so many people that have the stories in their head. I'm not good with the numbers. I have no time. And they feel like they didn't learn this in school. So how are they going to now do it for their business? And they ignore it. And now we all are working to grow our businesses, all of us in some form or another. Otherwise, what's the point, right? And so when you're growing your business, it's so important to have a handle on your numbers. So people get to a place where they've had enough is enough. They're in debt, they're behind on taxes, they're always stressed out and have no idea where all their money's going. So they get to a point where they realize they need to hire someone. And that's when they come to us. And what's awesome about that is they think they're sort of just coming to have someone help them with their numbers. But when they get into it with us, they realize this approach we take at Watch Her Prosper, which is really holistic, not just about the numbers, but really about them as a human, as a whole person, and having a judgment-free kind of safe space to work with them.
And tell me, what do you do with your clients when they come to you? Like, is there a standard process that you find you take your clients through, or is it very ad hoc depending on what they need?
It can be really customized, but we start really with the numbers, because the numbers are the data, the numbers are the information. To me, the numbers are the tool in which we can help them, right? So that's really important. So a lot of times they either don't have good books already, or they have them, but they're a mess. So we're doing a big cleanup. So the first couple of months is really just like, let's get the numbers in order so we know what we're working on, and then we start to dig in. And then what we do is really look at, where are we? Are we spending more than we're making? Is there debt we need to focus on? Are we behind on taxes or up to date? So really just assessing what's happening and what's the best way to really help them at that moment, adding strategies in place to help them save, to help them, pay down the debt, as I mentioned. And what's really interesting, though, is as soon as you start to get really deep into those numbers, you start to see the triggers. You start to see how much emotion is tied to the money. And that's why we do what we do. What we have seen is 61% of women would actually rather talk about the details of their own death, yes, their death, than talk about money.
It's
So
terrible, isn't it?
it is. It is. So that's a lot. That's a lot about what we do. Really having that space for them to show their emotion, to talk about how they grew up and those stories. And there are so many different stories we have, because everyone's got different journeys that they've been on and different things that they've carried with them. Because a lot of how we show up, a lot of how we operate is actually our subconscious beliefs. Only 3 to 5% of how we show up is based on our conscious beliefs. The rest is all subconscious. So we're really going deep with them.
Yeah. Ruchi, I think you're starting to touch on some interesting points here. One is the importance of having meaningful numbers so that you actually know where you are. And this is a common theme we find with clients that we work with, that if you don't have good bookkeeping practices, it's very hard to know where to go from there, because you can't see where you're at. One of the things we do in our business transformation program is help people think about how to link the numbers with the day-to-day actions. So we actually help them put together like a 10-year model, a financial model of their business to link with the actions. I guess the other thing that you've touched on, which I think is really important, is it's not just about numbers. It's not just about actions. It's also about mindset. And look, if it's okay, I know you work with your clients a lot around the way they think. Perhaps you could just touch on how you work with your clients in that regard. How do you get them to start thinking more effectively around particularly money issues?
Well, a lot of times those money issues sort of come up really naturally because they do have that safe space. There are, a lot of our clients call me their financial therapist because, as I say, all that emotion that comes up. So it comes up really naturally in a beautiful way, Rob. One of our clients, I was finding that after a period of time, we had created all these money goals and intentions. We helped her raise her rates, think about her packaging, and she met her financial revenue goals. Though what kept happening was she kept spending more and more. So there was never enough money. She wasn't saving for taxes. She wasn't saving for emergency fund. One of her accounts went to $1, even though her revenue was exactly where we had said we were working to target it. And she had all these amazing clients. So I said, what do we do? Like, I realized that pattern and I kind of really went deep with her. Like, there's a little bit of like calling out sort of love with people, right? They know they're safe and they know how much we care about them. So we can really just dig in and say, what's happening here? Talk to me. And what she said was she realized that growing up, her father used to use money as a weapon, as sort of like weaponize it. So she didn't feel safe holding money. And so she would just make it and spend it, make it and spend it. That's just one of so many examples of, how people are operating on that subconscious level. And and doing these things that they don't even realize until you really call them out and you really start to recognize the pattern.
And how do you then work with them to turn those patterns around?
So there are lots of ways. One of the biggest thing that I love to start with is just making people aware of what their thoughts are and their work are. So what we hear so often is, okay, there's never enough money, there's never enough clients, I'm so bad at the numbers. I have this method that I talk about, which is RIR, recognize, interrupt, reframe. So I ask people to pay attention to their language and their thoughts, recognize when they're saying or thinking something disempowering, interrupt it, and then reframe it with a more empowering or more prosperous thought. So for example, there's never enough money, to something more along the lines of, I'm so grateful that there's always enough money to pay the bills. Something like that.
No, that was the interrupt piece.
Yeah, the interrupt is to notice it. And then the reframe is to come up with more powerful language. And I like to use gratitude in that language because gratitude is the message to the universe of like, yes, give me more, give me more. So when we're operating from a place of lack, we're getting back lack. When we're operating from a place of abundance, we're getting back abundance.
Beautiful.
Do you find it difficult to define and execute a clear strategy for your small business? Does your team support your strategy? You know you are ready to create the right environment to boost your team's performance. Our 90-day business transformation program is designed for small business owners like you, with 5 to 30 team members who are ready for growth. Every day you'll receive a short email with a handful of growth actions. You'll invest 30 minutes each week in your one-on-one coaching session, tackling your specific growth challenges with one of our experienced growth guides, business owners themselves. Boost your confidence, your team's performance, and grow your small business with ease with our business transformation program at growsmallbusiness.com.
Can you give me an example of a client that you've worked with, and tell me a bit about sort of where they started, what you were able to do with them, and perhaps a little bit about how happy and wonderful everything is today?
Yes. Okay. So I have this amazing client who came to us with so much debt. She was behind on her taxes. She had no money in the bank. She was making, 7 figures, multi-7 figures, but there was never enough money and she just didn't know where it was going. So what we did was, first of all, like I said, we started off with getting really great numbers because there weren't really great numbers. We had to actually start over and do her books over from the beginning.
Right.
And we made a decision on how far back we were going to go. And then we started to create a process to save money in a better way. So a lot of times what we hear people say is, I'm profitable, so why do I feel broke? Well, everyone focuses on, oh, I have 7 figures of revenue, 8 figures of revenue. That's meaningless when you're spending more than you're making. That's also meaningless when you're not saving for taxes, saving for emergency fund, because you're going to end up with surprises and there's not going to be enough money. And depending on how you pay yourself, that payment, like in the US, depending on the kind of company you are, you may not be taking a salary. You may be taking what's called an owner draw or a distribution. That is not a number that goes on the profit and loss report. And it may be different. I'd love to know more about in Australia for many of your listeners. And so those numbers aren't on the P&L. So people just don't know where their cash is going. So with her, we created a savings strategy where we had multiple buckets of accounts and we were saving for taxes, saving for emergency fund, and really paying more attention. And then really to work to tackle her debt. So we've reduced her debt drastically. She's got those buckets. And she's really feeling so much more clear and confident about her numbers and really operating from a place of abundance and always knowing what's happening with informed decisions.
Brilliant. Yeah, well done. And yes, it's very similar in Australia. So, having a way to track how much tax you're about to owe is also really important. And like you say, it doesn't show on the P&L. So you need to be thinking balance sheet as well as P&L. But
Exactly. And really paying attention to save. So you don't have, nobody likes that kind of a surprise. There's some surprises we like, and that is not one of them.
correct, very true. And tell me, with this client you were talking about, was there a big focus on the mindset shift there as well?
Absolutely. That comes with the territory. I would say 90% of the time, there's something there to look at. People don't feel, a lot of people conflate their own self-worth with their pricing. That's one thing that I see really often, right? If you don't feel you're worthy, you're not going to feel as comfortable charging your customers or your clients based on the value of what you're providing. So that's a big one. A, a lot of times also, we are in small business. We do have inconsistent revenue sometimes, whether it's seasonal or whether it's just because that's reality, right? So it's really easy when there's slower periods to get caught up in oh, there's never enough clients. I'm feeling so down. And then just the problem is when you are operating from that perspective, if you think about it, when your feelings are in lack and you're like, oh, there's not enough, I don't have enough money, I'm so stressed out, then what's happening? Your actions are what? You're really retreating, you're hiding, you're feeling bad, you're not showing up powerfully. So then you're essentially creating a result of there's not enough money because you're hiding.
Yeah,
So that's a big part of that mindset.
yeah, yeah, that makes sense. So tell me, if there's one thing that you think our listeners should take away from our discussion today that they can put in place or action when they get back into their business, what do you think that would be?
Well, I'd love to recap on, I think, two really good things we talk about, and then I can add one. So one was that RIR. Really pay attention to your language and your thoughts, because that's what's creating your energy and how you're showing up. So stay in the abundance, prosperous mindset, stay there with your language, show gratitude, and use that RIR method, recognize, interrupt, reframe. That's one, just to recap. The
Love that.
other is that thank you. And that saving strategy is the other one. So as I talked about with this one client, but this is what we do with most of our clients, create those extra accounts so that you don't touch that money in the operating. Separate the tax savings, separate the growth/emergency fund. What you could do is there's a couple ways to do that. Every time, if you have big retainers and you're getting paid large fees at a time, every time you get paid from a client, you could take a percentage and put it into your tax and put it into your growth fund/emergency fund.
Mm,
Or once a month, whatever, based on your net income, which is your taxable income, take a percentage of that based on your tax rate and based on your savings goals and move it. So that's two. And then
yeah.
the other, which is something people can just jump into, is look at the easy stuff. Go into your numbers, look at what expenses you're spending on that are just like the easy things that aren't going to be mind-blowing, changing your whole business and your life. Are there softwares? Are there dues and memberships that you're not using? So many of our clients, we save thousands of dollars just doing that scrub every few months with our clients. And also little things like, are you paying your credit card bills on time? If you're not, just set them on auto pay so you avoid the bank fees and the interest expense. And then do the same on the revenue. What's really sucking your energy and what can you do with your revenue stream? So the ones that are really sucking your energy, are they profitable? Are you really bringing enough? If not, let them go. Let them go. Think about new things that bring you joy that you really love to do, and how can you use that as something that you can make money from?
Ruchi, that's been really insightful. Thank you so much for your time. I think there's a lot here that will resonate with many of our clients, but tell me, where can we find out a bit more about you if we're interested to find out more?
Amazing. Well, I have a nice social following on Instagram at Watch Her Prosper. So follow me there. We do a lot of practical, tactical, plus the spiritual advice. And you could also go to the website, watchherprosper.com, and check out what we're doing and stay in touch, sign up for our newsletter there.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for your time. It's been great, and your clients are very lucky to work with you and have such a supportive coach and mentor.
Thank you so much. It's been great to be here with you, Rob, and all of your wonderful listeners. I appreciate it.
Want to help other small business owners improve their business? There's one quick thing you can do, which is jump over to iTunes and leave a review. Or if you don't have an account, follow us on Spotify.